how early in the reading of the book did you know that you wanted Marlon Brando to play the Godfather?
Not early. You know, oddly enough, when finally his name did come up and talk about it, Mario said that he had always wanted Brando, and even before I was involved, had suggested it, and they said, oh, absolutely not. Marlon Brando is box office poison, and he's a lot of trouble, which he was. I mean, in the sensibility of Hollywood in those days, Marlon, I mean, he's such an extraordinary person as well as actor, but he had just been in a Gillo Pontecorvo film called Burn, Quemada. And it was actually a good film, but it was total, no one went to see it. So they had this idea that Brando, aside from his alleged misbehaving, which I don't know how true it was box office poison. So they absolutely, and you know, the names I heard floated were Danny Thomas. You know, Danny Thomas is, you know, he's Lebanese. Which is close enough, or I think Ernest Borgnine was suggested. Even interestingly, they had a brilliant idea to maybe Carlo Ponti, who was not an actor, but who was a real Italian producer. So you know, it was tricky. The character was in his 60s, so it wasn't as though you were going to really find a newcomer, you know, that suddenly could act. And so much later, I worked very closely with my associate Fred Roos, who was a co-producer and a great casting talent. And we finally said, well, who are the two greatest actors in the world? We said, well, Marlon Brando and Laurence Olivier. So Olivier, you know, of course, both of them had issues. I mean, Brando was only like 46, so he was young, he was not Italian. And Olivier really looked like Vito Genovese at that age. If you look at the pictures of who was one of the famous 5 guys that, I think that Mario synthesized the character out of Vito Genovese and Joe Profaci, put those 2 guys together. And then we heard that Olivier was too ill. At his latter part of his age, he was English, so we settled on Brando, but absolutely a stonewall. They had already turned down Pacino, and they kept wanting to do more screen tests. So we had the cast, ironically, that was actually in the film, all up here in San Francisco. My wife, I think, gave them a haircut, Al, and we knew more or less who we wanted, but Paramount spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do real formal screen tests. We tested every young leading man in the business, and ultimately they never would accept Pacino. Right to the end, I thought, I'll tell the story. It's pretty funny. So as for Brando, they absolutely were adamant. I was even told in one meeting by the president of Paramount, Francis, as the president of Paramount Pictures, I want you to know that Marlon Brando will never appear in this motion picture, and I forbid you from discussing it any further. So with that, I kind of fell out of the chair onto the rug or some dramatic gesture of helpless protest. And then they all looked, and then I got up. I said, well, if I can't even talk about it, I mean, how can it be? You know, how can I direct a movie? I'm not even allowed to talk about it. And one guy said, well, listen, if we cast Brando, just a Joe Dokes, an unknown, more people will come than if Marlon Brando was in it. That's how much they were against it. So finally they said to me, okay, we give you 3 conditions. 1, if he does a screen test. 2, if he'll do it for free. And 3, he has to put up $1 million bond to guarantee that there'll be no shenanigans on the set. So I said, I accept. You know, because at least we were talking, you know. And I put myself, I was terrified of him. I mean, I thought Marlon Brando was, you know, like a dream that I was even talking to him, you know. But I said, oh, you know, Marlon, you're not really Italian. Maybe we could do a little improvisation or something and for you to kind of get comfortable. And, you know, so I had heard, I know you want to talk about the book, but thought it'd be fun to talk about the casting of Marlon. We'll go over our time. So that I said, I had heard that Marlon didn't like loud noises, that he often wore earplugs and stuff. So I got together with some of my San Francisco colleagues, some cameramen. I said, listen, let's dress in black and no one talk. We'll just do sign languages when we're there. So we fly to LA with our cameras, and I had an early Sony, like one of the early Sony Handycams. And we knocked on the door, and the maid let us in, and we set up our camera very quietly.